It's a pleasure to speak with the presenter of the 41st Annual McFadden Memorial Lecture here at the Indianapolis Public Library, Jeff Kinney, who's the author and illustrator of the popular children's series, Diary of a Wimpy Kid. The award-winning series has been a bestseller since 2007, when Jeff's first book in the series was published. And in addition, 4 movies based on the series have grossed nearly $300 million worldwide. Jeff Kinney, it's a pleasure to have you here at the Indianapolis Library. Welcome.
Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
For those who don't know about your books, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, tell us about your main character, Greg, who has a hard time adjusting to middle school life, as many kids can relate to, I'm sure. How did you come up with the concept of Greg?
Well, it wasn't too hard coming up with Greg, because Greg is really a version of myself, sort of like a funhouse mirror version of myself at that age. And Greg has this inflated sense of himself, an inflated sense of himself in the world, where he's going. He has no real talents, but he thinks he's going to be rich and famous one day. And that, I guess every American kid grows up, thinking, hey, one day I'll be president, and I think that's Greg in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm. Based on any of your childhood experiences?
Based on lots of my childhood experiences. In fact, almost everything in the books came from real life and then got put through the fiction blender and then come out the other end as fiction.
So what's the overall moral to your stories for children today that you try to impart upon them?
There are no morals in my books. I wish I could say there were. I'm writing entertainment and humor for entertainment and humor's sake. But I do like it that kids read my books and then they associate reading with pleasure. I think it's really important that we give kids books at this really crucial time in their lives, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and that they pick up a book, they finish it, they get that sense of satisfaction and completion, and then they want more, and that's what I'm trying to do with my books.
You recently responded to questions from elementary school students here in Indianapolis for the Indianapolis Star newspaper to help them preview your appearance here at the Indianapolis Library. Many of those questions I thought were quite good.
They were.
One that I liked was asking about your use of illustration. You use stick figures in non-color. Why is that?
Yeah, I think that I try to keep my cartoons as simplistic as possible. Hopefully one notch above stick figures, but not much. I think that in cartooning, you're really trying to use as little information as possible to get the biggest point across possible. And so black is the only color a cartoonist needs. And then I try to challenge myself to use as few lines as possible in most of my drawings.
And I would guess that nothing surprises you much these days in terms of the questions you get from kids. Is that true?
That's true, yeah.
Do they give you any direction or a sense of where your story should be going?
Yeah, sometimes they do. I think kids really like to be surprised, though. In this case, I don't think they really like to shape the story. My stories are really very situational. Unlike Harry Potter, which those stories are very, very plot-driven, and you really need to know what happens next. In a sense, my stories always revert to how they started. They're like a sitcom where at the end of the episode, not much has really changed. You just reset.
You also have an online version of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, which I understand is viewed by about 70,000 people a day worldwide. How do you keep that going and keep that fresh? Yeah, Diary of a Wimpy Kid actually debuted online a long time ago, and I haven't actually touched it since, but that was 2004, a stretch between 2004 and 2006. I put it all up online first for free, about 1,300 pages, which compared to a Diary of a Wimpy Kid book, which is 217 pages, it's much more. And then we just left it. And it's been interesting because it's, even to this day, kids will read it online and then compare the official version, the book version versus the online version. That is interesting. Now, you and your wife, you live in Massachusetts outside of Boston. You own a bookstore. And I love the name of your bookstore, An Unlikely Story. We like it too. Yeah. How's that experience gone for you, and what was the genesis of having your own bookstore? That's really my favorite part of my professional life, is having a bookstore, because every week we get in nationally and internationally famous authors, and I get to just be in my hometown and sit in the audience and learn so much from these authors. But it started off with just us wanting to convert a building that was sitting rotting, really, literally in the center of our town. We took it down and then put up a new building, and now we have something to be proud of. And does that get in the way of your other fish to fry, so to speak, the writing and illustrating?
I think it probably does take up some of my time, but I find it much more edifying to have this other part of my life. Like, I don't want to just design Diary of a Wimpy Kid pillowcases for the rest of my life. It's good to have a good reputation amongst authors and cartoonists, and I can invite just about anybody and they'll come.
And that leads to the last question. What's the future hold for Diary of a Wimpy Kid?
I think more books. What I really realized is that the roots of my books are in cartoons, not necessarily in literature. So Greg doesn't ever need to get older. In fact, a cartoon character, we don't want them to get older. We want them to stay the same. So Charlie Brown had 50 years. If I'm lucky, I'll have about 20.
Well, best of luck in that endeavor, and thank you for coming to Indianapolis to be the presenter of the library's 41st Annual McFadden Memorial Lecture.